How do you achieve life to the fullest? How do you live life to the fullest? How do you become fulfilled and happy in life and satisfied with life? Is it through money? Is it through lots of friends? Is it through seeking all kinds of fun activities to do? Is it through romantic relationships? Is it through just experiencing all the pleasures and thrills that you can in this life? I don't think so. It's my view that how you live life to the fullest is by knowing Jesus. That's the only way you can live life to its fullest. You see, we were all made with a emptiness inside of us that only Jesus can fill. Only He can fill that emptiness. So oftentimes we look for fulfillment and meaning in life with, getting a good job, getting a good career, making a lot of money. And we often look through other avenues to achieve happiness, such as having fun, pleasure, all the pleasures that this life could bring us. And so we often seek fulfillment and happiness in that. But oftentimes, even if we have a lot of friends, we have money, we have success in this life, so often we're still left empty. We're still left unfulfilled. And I think that's because the reason that is because we don't know Jesus or know Him to the extent we ought to. And more oftentimes than not, it's those that don't know Jesus that really feel that void. They really feel that emptiness. We've been going through Genesis, and we're now at the point where it talks about that the earth was void and that there was nothing, nothing on the face of the deep, that it was just a waste, watery world. And sometimes that's how our lives are, especially if you don't know Jesus. That's how your life is. You may experience thrills in life. You may have those friends. You may have that money. But it ultimately doesn't leave you satisfied. It doesn't leave you with satisfaction. It doesn't leave you with the purpose, the fulfillment, the achievement that you were really looking for. There's still that void. There's still that emptiness you have inside of you. And so that emptiness is telling you something is missing, and that something is Jesus. And often, and also in that verse, it talks about how there was just darkness on the face of the deep. And so often our lives without Jesus, in fact, it's not so often, it's always, our lives without Jesus is darkness, sin. So oftentimes we think sin will give us the pleasures of life, that it will give us fulfillment. But in reality, what sin does is it just leaves our lives wrecked and ruined, and it wrecks and ruins the lives of other people. So what is sin? Sin is rebelling, of course, against any of God's purposes and plans for our life. You see, God is a good God. He loves us. And so the laws and rules that He lays down for us are for our good. It's not to harm us. And so oftentimes we think that we know better than God. We think, hey, this will make me happy, or that will make me happy. And since God said no, and it's going to make me happy, well, I know better than God, so I'm going to go ahead and do that thing. And so oftentimes that's how we get our lives in trouble. We disobey what God says and realize that He was keeping us from harm, and we just ended up rushing into harm. And our lives have this downward spiral where we're sucked into sin, and there's just so much darkness in our lives. Our lives are just feel purposeless and empty, and like there's no way out, like there's no hope. And so that's the dilemma, that so often we reach that point in our lives, and is there a way out? And there is. God is in the business of taking our lives and restoring us, taking that brokenness that we have, taking that just despair that we're in, and doing a new work in our lives. And that's really what I'm going to focus on in these next few lessons is how does God do that? And it's a process. It's a process in how he takes us from darkness and despair and gives us a whole brand new life in Jesus and gives us just hope beyond hope, a joy that's unshakable, purpose that is so fulfilling that it's just amazing how fulfilling it is. And how he takes us from that state of darkness and just purposelessness and just completely does something totally brand new. And so really that's what we're going to focus on. And obviously the springboard for that is going to be this, because it talks about the state of the earth before God did anything with it. And so often in our lives, before God does anything, before God moves and acts to save us from ourselves, our life is that point where it's where we're just in bondage to sin, that we've made such a wreck of our lives, such a ruin of our lives. And so that's really what I'm going to talk about. Talk about how God's saving work is a progressive thing. It doesn't happen all at once, but it's a progressive work. Well, there's 3 stages to God's saving work in theology. 1 is justification, 2 is sanctification, and 3 is called glorification. Justification is the first stage of God's saving work, in that he forgives us of our wrong, that fellowship that was broken between us and God is restored. And then the second aspect is sanctification, where God does a new work in us and helps us to, or causes us and helps us to live a whole brand new life, to get us out of the mess that we're in our lives, the bondage to sin, the void, the emptiness that we feel, to get us out of that. And so that's the progressive work. And the third is glorification, when we die, we go to heaven to be with God, and that his work is fully completed in us. And so I'm really going to look at Genesis chapter 1 and through the lens of sanctification, this God doing a work in our lives. And so really that's what I'm going to, it's really what I'm going to focus on. It's really what I'm going to end up doing in these series. So if you feel like your life is like that it's void, that it's you lack that meaning, that purpose, you really feel in bondage to sin, then please stick around for these next couple of videos, because I think in them could be life-changing. And another thing in that verse, it talks about the Spirit of God was over the face of the waters. And that's important. The Holy Spirit is the one that really helps us in this process of changing and getting us out of trouble. He's the one that, if you're in that situation right now, he's the one that's really grabbing your attention, really getting you to realize the state you're in, how you need help, and he's right there with you in this process. So without God's Spirit, none of this would be happening. So we also see the state of our lives, but also that God is at work. That God, even though our lives may seem completely meaningless and empty, God is still God, and he's doing a work. And these videos very well could be the start of a brand new work in your life. Even without these videos, God could do a work. God can do a work in anybody's life, and in any way, shape, or form he so chooses. But my hope and prayer is that in these videos that the Holy Spirit will begin to do a work in people's lives, that he will begin to take maybe those individuals who really feel like they're dominated by sin, that they're in a lost state, that they don't know Jesus, that he really help them, as they watch these videos, give them understanding. And so that's an important fact to remember. It's that it's the Holy Spirit that does a work in our lives, that God is right there along with us, helping us, that we have no ability completely on our own to do it, but God's the one that does the work. And so that's really what we're going to see, is that God is the one who does the work. God is the one that saves us. We can't save ourselves. It's only God that can change us. And so we'll continue on in these next few lessons about this work that God does in our lives.